Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, July 8th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, Noah Cameron dominated the Pirates. Is Bryce Harper washed? Is he done? I don't know. Plus, I have some pitcher questions and much more, but let's jump in. All right, Chris, since the fantasy funeral for Zac Gallen, he is 2 for 2 in quality starts. What do you think?
I mean, not just quality starts. This is the most starts in a 2-start stretch for Zac Gallen, I think, since April of 2023. He struck out 10 in his previous start, 9 on Monday against a Padres team that does not strike out very much. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 1 walk. 19 strikeouts over the past 2 starts. It was almost easier when he was just bad, right? Because it had been, a 5.75 ERA 3 starts ago. He had a 4.88 ERA over the past calendar year. It would have been easier if Zac Gallen had just continued to stink and we could just slowly drop him. And now he goes out and has 2 incredible starts back-to-back, and we have to really consider what this means for Zac Gallen. Now, today his velocity was up across the board, and this is something that the previous start, his fastball velocity wasn't up, but his cutter and changeup were. In this one, fastball velocity was up, the curve and changeup and cutter were up even more than the fastball, so maybe there's something going on there, but it's hard because when you look at it, the biggest things that he's done is the fastball and curveball have just been really, really good. The curveball in particular has just been outstanding. He has, over the past 2 starts, has thrown his curveball just 15% of the time in the strike zone. And despite that, I think he has a 38% called plus swinging strike rate with it because he's generated 15 swinging strikes on just the curveball across the past 2 starts. It's a 54% swinging strike rate on the season in these 2 starts. That's really impressive. And then the 4-seamer, he is just doing a really good job of filling up the strike zone. He has a 38% called plus swinging strike rate in those 2 starts. He's filling up the strike zone, 62% zone rate for the 4-seamer. And that combination right there, a lot of 4-seam strikes, a lot of curveballs buried right below the zone where hitters are being enticed to swing at them, I think explains most of why things have gone right for Zac Gallen. But, and of course there's a but here, because Zac Gallen has been pretty mediocre over the past calendar year. His overall average exit velocity allowed over the past 2 starts is 95.9 miles per hour. It's 95.7 on the 4-seamer. So that seems to be the give and take, right? He's throwing a lot of strikes. He's generating called strikes. He's even generating some whiffs, 20% whiff rate on the 4-seamer today or over the past 2 starts. It's just, can he do that without getting crushed? Well, he's got a 38% strikeout rate the past 2 starts. So yes, if you have a 38% strikeout rate, you can pretty much do anything and you're going to be a good pitcher. It's really hard not to be a very good pitcher when you have a 38% strikeout rate. The problem is a 38% strikeout rate is obviously unsustainable for Zac Gallen. His career rate is 26%. His career high is 28%. So what if he's a 26% strikeout rate guy moving forward? That's his career rate. That'd be pretty good. Is he an ace if he's giving up 96 mile per hour average exit velocity? No, probably not. And so it would not be fair at all to say 2 steps forward, 1 step back over these past 2 starts. This is like 7 steps forward and his shoelace is untied and you're worried he's going to trip, right? Like it's not, the positives far outweigh the negatives over these past 2 starts. And if you were rightly looking at dropping Zac Gallen before these 2 starts, there's no way you can. You got to hold on to him. You've got to see where this goes. But I'm not sure I feel super confident saying, hey, Zac Gallen's back to being a top 25 starting pitcher. I wouldn't say that at all. But it's the first time in over a year where we've had a reason to be optimistic about Zac Gallen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll take that at the very least.
Yeah, it would be irresponsible to just say, all right, Zac Gallen's back. But as I said after his last start, this is a step in the right direction.
Yes.
If you look at the last 2 starts combined, it's 13 innings, 1 earned run, 19 strikeouts to just 1 walk. The hard contact is still scary, obviously, but if you can't give up hard contact and walks. So if you can limit the walks and get strikeouts while allowing hard contact, you might be able to kind of toe that line and still have some success here. But, you know, if you're not getting whiffs and you're allowing walks and you're allowing hard contact, I mean, that's just an obvious recipe.
That's how you get what Zac Gallen was doing for the first 3 months of the season.
But now he's getting whiffs over his last 2 and he's limiting walks. So, you know, obviously you'll take what he's doing right now, and he's at the Angels this weekend. Good spot. You know, they do hit some home runs. They, you know, can hit the ball hard as well, but they're also prone to striking out quite a bit as well. So that seems to be a good landing spot here for Zac Gallen going into the All-Star break. We'll see how he does in that one, but a very positive trend right now for Zac Gallen. Player of the night for me is going to be Noah Cameron, who was great up against the Pirates. 7 innings, 2 runs with 7 strikeouts to 1 walk. He had 18 whiffs on 109 pitches. This is the first time he's even completed 6 innings since June 5th. He failed to complete 5 innings in back-to-back starts before this. So it's not like he was getting crushed, giving up a ton of runs or anything. He was a little inefficient recently, but obviously back on track here. Worth noting, great matchup against the Pirates, obviously. And you know what? I've been impressed by Noah Cameron this year. I know you would like to see more whiffs out of him, but when you look at the individual pitches, I have questions about the fastball. His other 4 secondary pitches, they all look pretty good. Somewhere between good and great on those 4 pitches. So I think that there are pieces here for Noah Cameron to work with, and obviously it's a good ballpark to pitch in, and he's got pretty good control, doesn't really walk many. So I like what we've seen overall this year. It's a 2.56 ERA. It's a .96 WHIP. Underlying numbers say that, you know, those numbers should probably be a little bit higher, but coming off this start, 74% rostered, Chris, I kind of think Noah Cameron is in that mix. I'm not going to say I'm going to put him ahead of Edward Cabrera and names like that in MVN, but I think he's kind of in that mix, maybe 1 tier just below those guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I would take Sheehan. I would take Cabrera. I'm sure there were a couple other pitchers that we had put in that group.
Ryan Nelson.
Ryan Nelson, I think, is closer to Noah Cameron because I think both are not going to be very good strikeout sources. So strikeouts aren't everything, obviously. But the reason we focus so much on strikeouts, especially when we're talking about roto value, is 1, strikeouts are the best way to get outs. You give up a strikeout, or you strike someone out, you're almost certainly not giving up a run. Whereas you give up a lazy, fly ball, that can sometimes turn into runs. And so I understand that we focus a lot on strikeouts. It's because that's the best thing a pitcher can do. And in roto, guys who strike batters out, all else being equal, are more valuable than guys who don't get a lot of strikeouts. So just if you're comparing 2 pitchers with identical ratios, one has a 25% strikeout rate, one has a 20% strikeout rate, the guy with the 25% strikeout rate's better. And so that's why we focus so much on that. And I will point out, yes, he had 18 swinging strikes. It was, 8 strikeouts today? 7 strikeouts in 7 innings.
Yep.
The Pirates are
bad.
The 3rd lowest WOBA against lefties and the 2nd highest strikeout rate. So that's about as good a matchup for a left-handed pitcher as you can get in today's game. Maybe, I'm sure the White Sox have a higher WOBA against lefties than the Pirates do somehow. So take that with a grain of salt, and I'll say, Cameron's 74% rostered?
Yeah.
I think that's probably fine. Like, maybe it could be a little higher when the matchups are good or in a 2-start week. But I don't necessarily look at the skill set. The 389 FIP, the xERA is actually better, but, take that with a grain of salt because it's a 329 expected WOBA on contact, and we're dealing with a very small sample size. I think 80% rostered is probably fine for Noah Cameron.
Okay. Yeah. Talking it through, I think him versus Ryan Nelson is a close one. They're not similar pitchers, but I think in terms of results,
The results are similar.
I have similar expectations for both of those guys. So I think I would lean with Noah Cameron. There's, some more prospect pedigree there with him versus Ryan Nelson, but Nelson has pitched very well to his credit. I would take Edward Cabrera ahead. I would take Sheehan. Joe Boyle's a little bit tougher because if you're in a league with quality starts or you need volume, that's a little bit tougher. But just in terms of ratios and strikeouts, I think Joe Boyle is going to be pretty reliable. So depending on your league context, if you just need ratios and strikeouts, I would go with Boyle. If you need, quality starts or a little bit more length, I would probably lean with Noah Cameron there. But go ahead.
I'm looking at some pitchers who are rostered in roughly the same or higher rates, and I would drop Drew Rasmussen for Noah Cameron, given the concerns about the workload for Noah Cameron for Drew Rasmussen.
Brady Singer, 83%.
Brady Singer, that feels like an easy one. He was a 2-star pitcher this week with a matchup against the Marlins and Rockies, I'm pretty sure. So that's why he was that rostered, but I don't think he needs to be that rostered moving forward.
Clayton Kershaw.
That's a tough one. He keeps getting the job done, but I don't really buy it. So I think I would take Cameron over him. Will Warren is a tough one because I think the upside's higher for him, but the results have been much better for Noah Cameron. Dustin May, another one. I think he's more talented, but I think I'd rather have Noah Cameron.
Same.
Mitch Keller's really hot. He's slightly lower rostered. If you, Darvish, and Noah Cameron were both available on the waiver wire right now, I think I'd take Noah Cameron over him.
That is close because
it's the name.
Yeah, but I mean, Darvish still pitched well last year, and his velocity looked fine here.
He just has not been able to stay healthy lately.
Yeah, that's true.
I just worry it's a little bit of a Max Scherzer, not the same, but
3.31 ERA, 107 WHIP for Darvish last year. 8.6 K per nine. That's pretty good. That one's close. I know I'm talking up Noah Cameron. I think I would actually take Darvish.
That's fine. Yeah. No, but I think all that to say that I think the 74% rostered rate is probably fine for Noah Cameron. It doesn't strike me as egregiously low.
All right. Before we hit our first break, just a big thanks to those watching us live. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Let's run through the news and notes. And Hunter Greene will not make a rehab start at AAA Tuesday as originally planned, as he felt renewed tightness in his right groin. He did have an MRI, which did not reveal any significant damage. Terry Francona said Greene is likely experiencing fatigue, which is, not great, Chris. We get a little bit of a setback here from Hunter Greene where, maybe we would have expected him coming right out of the All-Star break to be in the rotation. Now I think we're probably looking at maybe late July or early August right now.
Yeah, it's totally speculative at this point. Hopefully it's just a short-term setback and he's back out there in a few days, but it's been a really troublesome recovery, and not just this, right? Because it was a groin injury earlier in the season. He comes back from it. He made, 3 starts, and then goes back on the IL. So it just...
And he didn't look right when he came back either.
Yeah, so it's been a really tough couple of months for him with this injury, and then the back being connected to it is, it's a little concerning for Hunter Greene.
Ketel Marte was scratched from the lineup Monday with right groin tightness, and if there is one knock on him, it's soft tissue injuries that he's dealt with throughout his career. I am seeing now that Torey Lavulo said there's a pretty good chance that Ketel Marte plays on Tuesday. But, hey, man, we need him healthy for the second half. So
I'd almost rather just take the rest of the week off,
Yeah. The problem there is we found out so late. It was, maybe an hour before game time or something. Mm-hmm. So in leagues where I had Marte, I couldn't even get him out of the lineup, which, was unfortunate. The D-backs injuries continue to pile up here. They also play Shelby Miller on the IL, this one out of nowhere, with a right forearm strain, retroactive to July 6th. And no surprise, they had a save opportunity right away here on Monday. It was Kevin Ginkel who got the ninth inning with a 3-run lead. He did pick up the save, some help from his defense too. I saw an awesome catch from Alec Thomas in that one. Kevin Ginkel has closing experience. He also has an ERA over 9. So.
Yeah, he's been terrible this season. His velocity's down about 1 mile per hour on his fastball. It's down like 3 miles per hour on his slider. He's been horrible. But he's the closer right now for a decent team, a team that I think is at least a 500 team. So I think he's worth adding.
Mm-hmm. Interesting to see what the D-backs wind up doing here at the deadline.
Yeah.
They are 4.5 games out of the wild card spot. It's not insurmountable, but I guess if they're just looking in the mirror and being honest with everything that's happened this year and losing Corbin Burns and the way the bullpen has performed, it's probably not going to happen, but I don't know. Crazier things have happened. Last year, the Tigers sold and they were like the best team in the second half. So
yeah, they're a team that, I mean, who would they sell? You know, Suarez is an impending free agent.
That makes sense.
I think Naylor is as well.
Those two, I mean, I think you get a pretty good haul for those.
Those two make sense, and it clears the way for Jordan Lawler. I think trading both of them would be a lot for a team that still wants to compete. But yeah, I think they could get a pretty good package for either of those guys if they wanted to move them. I will point out, you know, because we talked about it on last night's podcast, Corbin Carroll had 3 batted balls over 100 miles per hour today, 107.8, 101.9, 107.5, plus another one that was 93. So that's a very good sign given our concerns that he had been rushed back from the wrist injury.
Gallen, pending free agent too. I mean, I guess they could shop him too if they wanted to. Tyler Glasnow is making his return Wednesday in Milwaukee, likely to play it safe for fantasy purposes. Yeah. Let's see what he does in that one before we go ahead and start him. Alex Bregman will be activated from the IL sooner rather than later. That comes from Alex Cora, and he'll go through a heavy workout on Tuesday and could return as soon as this weekend. Again, that is Alex Bregman. Brandon Lau was out of the lineup Monday due to left side soreness. Another one, be careful with this guy. Lengthy injury history, but he's having a great season. Christian Walker was placed on the paternity list, which means he'll miss between 1 and 3 games. Rhys Hoskins was officially placed on the IL with a grade 2 left thumb sprain. The Brewers recalled Andrew Vaughn, who they acquired from the White Sox earlier this season. And what do you know? He homered off of Yoshinobu Yamamoto in his very first plate appearance with the Brewers. He finished 1 for 2 with a walk, home run, 3 RBI, and he was actually performing pretty well in the Brewers minor league system. So I think just a name in NL only leagues for now, Chris. But if he plays every day, you know, maybe becomes a like 15-team mixed roto name, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that he matters much, but yeah.
Teoscar Hernandez and Tommy Edman are both aiming to return to the Dodgers lineup on Wednesday. Michael King was transferred to the 60-day IL, which is more procedural than anything, just to open up a roster spot. Luis Robert is expected to be activated from the IL within the next few days. Masataka Yoshida will most likely be activated from the IL on Wednesday. Just a name for deep leagues for now. The Cardinals are having internal discussions about Michael McGreevy replacing Eric Fedde in the rotation and potentially starting Saturday against the Braves. I think McGreevy is mildly interesting for deeper leagues. He's someone who has pretty good minor league numbers, gets a lot of ground balls. There's not a lot of strikeout upside here, but just kind of profiles as a, SP3, SP4 at the major league level. The Rockies optioned Chase Dolander to AAA, and he currently has a 6.68 ERA and a 1.56 whip. So as great as he was in the minors, Coors Field and the Rockies strike again. It's just an impossible place for a pitcher to pitch. Casey Schmidt was activated from the IL. Tyler Fitzgerald was optioned back to AAA. And we do have some prospect updates here. The Cardinals promoted J.J. Weatherholt from AA to AAA. In 62 games at AA, he hit 300 with 7 homers, 14 steals, an 892 OPS, and more walks than strikeouts. He's just 22 years old and was the 7th overall pick in last year's draft. Chris, not a name for this year, but I think potentially opening day or early next season, we could see JJ Weatherholt with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, if he holds his own at AAA, I think you should expect him to be on the opening day roster next season. It's not, clear where. They would probably have to move Nolan Arenado before then because they have Mason Wynn at shortstop. He's a better defensive shortstop than Weatherholt, although Weatherholt is someone who does seem like he'll play shortstop in the long term, or at least can. So maybe he's, playing third base or second base next year, but they're doing this like on the fly. Jeez, you ever just, yeah. All right. That's fine. I'm fine. I'm doing okay. On the fly rebuild that's actually looking like sort of successful for them. They desperately need some pitchers to click, but the Cardinals have a kind of interesting core and actually some redundancies right now.
Yeah. The Cardinals were pretty much an afterthought coming into this season. That's why everyone had them selling off Arenado. They're a game and a half out of a wild card spot right now. And
to be fair, they were trying to sell Arenado.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. It was not like some...
In fact, they had a deal done with the Astros.
Yes. It was not like everybody wants them to trade Nolan Arenado. They wanted to trade Nolan Arenado as much as anyone.
Yeah.
They just couldn't find a taker for him.
But some of their young guys have played well this season, and just overall, it's been
pretty impressive. Yeah,
a better year than expected for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then the Tigers promoted Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal, and Josue Briseño from High A to Double A. Those guys are still a little bit further away, but I've listened to some prospect podcasts recently, and people are very excited about Kevin McGonigal potentially being like the number one prospect in baseball over the next year or something like that. Let's get into waiver wire pitchers from Monday's action. We already mentioned Yu Darvish made his season debut. We didn't actually list off the line. Here's what he did: 3 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, had 12 whiffs on 63 pitches. He threw 65 of his pitches for strikes. He limited hard contact. He did the usual Darvish thing. He threw 8 different pitches in this one, and his velocity was fine. It was actually, the sinker and fastball were actually slightly up from where they were last year. So 73% rostered, gets the Phillies next time out. Wouldn't want to use him there, but yeah, I still think Darvish can be viable. And maybe even more so than just like a matchups play. I still think there's some talent there. So we spoke about him earlier, Chris. I like him a little bit more than Noah Cameron, but I still think I would have Darvish behind Cabrera, Sheehan, and probably Joe Boyle.
I think so. Yeah, I think that makes sense. My biggest concern is just that he's not going to be able to hold up, but it's fun. You look at the 8 pitch mix I think that he had, and his movement profile on basically everything was different than last season. And I don't even know where to begin in analyzing that. Like, what do you do with his sweeper had 5 more inches of sweep, and his slider had 5 more inches of slide, and his splitter had. It's just like that. He throws so many pitches. I don't understand. I don't know how you do that. So he looked like himself. That doesn't mean that Yu Darvish is going to be an ace. I think that's extremely unlikely. But a mid to high 3s ERA and decent strikeout numbers, I think that's perfectly reasonable to expect from him.
Yep. What about Landon Root? He was okay against the Phillies, 5 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts here, and he has allowed just a total of 3 earned runs over his last 4 outings. He also just has not been getting many strikeouts. He's got a 3.39 ERA, a 1.46 WHIP. It kind of feels just like a deeper points league spark, but anything shallower than that, the WHIP is so bad. I can't use him in a categories league or anything like that.
Yeah, no, he's relying on his curveball less as the season goes on. Probably because it's
his best pitch too.
Yeah, by far. It's a 40% whiff rate pitch and has great results on balls in play. It's a really hard pitch to command because it's a big, slow curveball. It's like a 75-mile-an-hour curveball. And so that's always been my takeaway when watching Landon Roop. Jeez.
Third time's a charm.
Is just that, early in the season he was throwing that as his primary pitch, and it's just it got him into so many bad counts because that's a really hard pitch to throw consistently for strikes. And I think we're seeing that approach was unsustainable, but I don't know how much upside there is if he has to throw the changeup about as often as he does the curveball. So that's my concern. Only 4 whiffs in this start.
Yeah.
I think Landon Roop. I got it right. Okay.
Roop.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like imagine his name just has a G on the front.
Yeah. I think he's just a streamer.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Some names in deeper leagues. Richard Fitz, a solid start against the Rockies. 5 2/3 innings, 3 unearned runs with 6 strikeouts. Had 14 whiffs on 91 pitches. Jansen Junk, who apparently is developing some kind of cult following because I have people tweeting at me about Jansen Junk. Turned in a quality start at the Reds. 6 innings, just 1 hit, 1 unearned run with 3 strikeouts at the Reds. And Kader Montero of the Tigers, a strong spot start here against Tampa Bay. 6 innings, 1 run with 4 strikeouts. Very deep league names, Chris, but do any stand out? Jansen Junk, Richard Fitz, and Kader Montero.
Fitz is mildly interesting. He's got a 4-seamer that can miss some bats and a sweeper that can miss a lot more bats. The problem is he's gotten hit really hard when he doesn't miss bats this season. I don't think that's likely to change. 4.32 expected WOBA on contact, 5.69 expected ERA for the season. That is really, really bad. So I think it's just deep league. And look, I know that Jansen Junk, I think part of what it is Jansen Junk has a really high induced vertical break on his 4-seamer, and people get excited when they see that in today's game. And I want to say I've seen a couple of people tweet it that Jansen Junk had the lowest FIP in baseball entering today's start. Cool is my response to that. I don't think this approach is going to last at all. He has a good fastball that doesn't really miss a lot of bats, but it does generate some weak contact. I don't think anything else here is particularly special. I think the stuff is really bad. If you look at the various like Stuff Plus models on Fangraphs, he rates out pretty well, mostly because his location metrics look really good. He's throwing a ton of pitches in the strike zone right now. Like a 59% rate of pitches in the strike zone overall. That is a great way to avoid walks and a great way to give up a lot of loud contact. And he has a 4.19 expected WOBA on contact on the season. That's really bad. He has an actual WOBA on contact of like 343, which is very good. I don't see any reason to think this is sustainable. Even in this one, I was looking it up. He had 4 batted balls with an XBA over 500 today. Ground out, line out, single ground out. That's not a skill, you know? Like, we know we're 125 years into the history of Major League Baseball. We are like almost 40 years into the like era of understanding BABIP. We know this is not sustainable, what Jansen Junk's doing. He gets the Orioles this week. Oh, I forgot to mention, he has had like have you looked at his schedule?
No.
I don't know if any pitcher in Major League history has ever had a more favorable 9-start stretch. The Reds today were the first time he faced an above average lineup in WOBA against right-handed pitchers. It's been the Angels, Giants, Rockies away from Coors Field, Pirates, Nationals, Braves, Giants, Twins, Reds. You can't ask for a better schedule than what Jansen Junk has had. I wanted to give him a fair chance because he's been very impressive. The results have been good. We've been getting questions about it. I don't think there's anything here. Like, if you want to stream him against the Orioles this weekend, that's fine. The Orioles are not a good lineup. I don't have any faith in Jansen Junk being fantasy relevant at all moving forward.
I mostly agree with you, but I will just bring up, looking at pitcher list, they have this PLV metric, which is kind of an all-encompassing metric for specific pitches. And Jansen Junk's fastball before this start ranked in the 89th percentile, his slider ranked in the 94th, his curveball in the 90th, and his sweeper in the 95th. So do with that what you will. I'm just passing information along. I don't know that it means anything, but
yeah, I was, when I was looking into it, it looked very much to be about the location metrics. The stuff rated out very poorly, and the location metrics rated out as some of the best in baseball. I don't know. Maybe he can get away with it. I don't see any reason to believe he will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, speaking of location, he has just 4 total walks in 43 and a third innings, which we've never seen control anywhere close to this for Jansen Junk. So, look, he's doing some things right now. NL-only leagues, sure. I mean, deeper mixed leagues, maybe in the right matchups. But this is one of those names that could just kind of like blow up and erase everything in the blink of an eye. So
that's my expectation. There's going to be some start where he gives up 3 home runs, and it's going to undo it all.
Quick look at some waiver wire hitters from Monday's action. Addison Barger did it again. We've talked a lot about Addison Barger, 1 for 4 with his 12th home run. Last 9 games, he has 4 home runs and 1 steal. So there was a bit of a lull there, I think, in maybe mid to late June, but he's picking things back up. Addison Barger is, and the data looks great. Again, we've talked a lot about him. 73% rostered, and he's one of the most added hitters on CBS right now, as he should be. 2 other names in deeper leagues. Victor Caratini stayed hot, brought his name up a bunch recently as well. Last 15 games, he's been batting .296 with 6 home runs, 18 RBI, and a .953 OPS. So deeper 2-catcher leagues, Victor Caratini he's in the mix. And Tommy Pham doing some things. That's right. Last 11 games with the Pirates, he's batting .421 with all 3 of his home runs this season, 15 RBI, and an OPS over 1,100. Chris, any deep league interest in Caratini or Tommy Pham?
Caratini's been doing it long enough that I think if you need a second catcher, just go ahead and add him. He's playing a lot because of the Yordan Alvarez injuries, giving Yainer Diaz more opportunities at DH. Christian Alvarez is away from the team from a couple days, so he'll play a lot this week. I don't expect Victor Caratini to be a must-start fantasy option moving forward, but I think he's fine as a second catcher if you need one right now, and I have very little interest in Tommy Pham.
You know what? It's just one of the most annoying things in fantasy, Chris, is I dropped Tommy Pham in an NL-only league right before this stretch started, and it's just so annoying, man. Yeah. It is so annoying. You hold this guy all year in an NL-only league, you drop him finally, and then he goes off out of nowhere. It's just, there were no signs that this was going to happen. Oh, God, it's just so frustrating. Anywho, let's take our final break. When we return, I've got pitcher questions for Chris. We'll talk about it right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. I've got 6 pitching questions. There was 7, but, Zac Gallen we already talked about. So it's down to 6, and let's start with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who could not escape the first inning at the Brewers. He recorded just 2 outs. He was charged with 3 earned runs, but 5 runs total, 2 walks to 0 strikeouts here. He threw more fastballs and sliders in this one. The splitter had nothing, which is supposed to be his best pitch. Didn't have the curve working either. That's supposed to be his second best pitch. So last 2 starts before this were good. There have been some hiccups along the way. He's allowed 4+ runs in 3 of his last 7 starts. Overall numbers are still great here, Chris, but is there anything that stands out to you underneath is that worries you about Yamamoto? I mean, could it be fatigue? We know he didn't throw many innings last year. Maybe these are just the ebbs and flows of a pitcher who relies on a splitter as much as he does. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the likeliest explanation is just that splitters especially are a real feel pitch, and we've seen that with other pitchers who rely on their splitter a lot. It comes and goes, and sometimes guys look unhittable. I think you look at Kevin Gausman as a guy who, even now, there are times still where he looks like his old self, and then there are times when he just gets bombed, and I think that's because the splitter is just a volatile pitch. And then you add on top of that for Yamamoto the fact that His second best pitch and his second best put away pitch in particular is that big slow curveball. That's it's a 77 mile an hour curveball. That's gonna be a tough pitch to consistently command, and some days he's not gonna have it. And I think that's the likeliest explanation. And the thing with Yamamoto is when you look into the arsenal, it's not a great four seamer. It's not a great cutter or slider. So the margin for error here, if he doesn't have his two really good pitches, is pretty iffy. But you still look at the overall numbers, and it's a 2.77 ERA. Well, it's a 2.82 xERA. It's a 28% strikeout rate. That's been consistent from last year to this year. I think that's just who he is. So I don't have much concern at all about Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
What about on the other side? Freddie Peralta was great up against the Dodgers. 6 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Only had 9 whiffs on 98 pitches here, but he only allowed 1 hard hit. And pretty much had everything working here for Freddie Peralta. He has allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 18 of 19 starts. The control has been much better lately. The question here, Chris, 2.74 ERA comes with a 3.69 FIP, a 3.94 xFIP. His BABIP is low. His left on base percentage is high. I think you can make the case that Freddie Peralta is a sell high candidate, but he's also healthy and he's a pretty reliable like SP2, SP3. Mm-hmm. So unless you just have this wealth of pitching, I don't know that you can afford to trade Freddie Peralta right now.
And the 244 BABIP, 249 after this start, that's low even for him. But you look at his track record, and it's a 267 career BABIP. And it was 278 last year and 273 the year before. And those are the 2 highest he's had outside of the 2020 season. And that's just who he is. He's just always like FIP and xFIP in particular are built around the premise that more or less all pitchers have the same skill at generating outs on balls in play. Because that was the assumptions that we had made for a long time because we didn't have the data to do more than that. But it's always been clear that some guys do have the ability to limit hard contact more than others. And Peralta is one of those guys. So, we have a long enough track record there. He's got, I was looking it up today for a piece that I'm going to be writing. He has 4 pitches with a whiff rate above the average for that pitch. So, it's a deep, good arsenal. His slider has a 60% whiff rate, which is remarkable. I know he's changed that pitch up and he's throwing it a lot less. But, yeah, he's got a lot of ways to get hitters out. I do think he's not a sub-3 ERA pitcher. I think that's a fair expectation. It's probably more like 350. That's still a really good pitcher. And like you said, he is currently healthy. You can't say that about every starting pitcher. And at some point, okay, he's outperforming his ERA by half a run. Yeah, okay, maybe there's a little room to sell high, but I don't think Freddie Peralta stands out as a sell high candidate either.
All right, let's move on to Christopher Sanchez, who had another great outing, this time at the Giants. 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to just 1 walk. He had 17 whiffs on 105 pitches. That changeup just tremendous. 15 of his 17 whiffs here, and he now has 7 straight quality starts. He has gone 7+ innings in 5 of those. He also has just 1 total walk over his last 5 starts. So Christopher Sanchez just looks awesome right now. He's down to a 2.59 ERA, 1.13 whip. The strikeouts are up this season. And Chris, maybe he's just a top 12 starting pitcher. I was looking at my rankings. I have him at SP19. I think I have Joe Ryan at SP12. I have Carlos Rodon at 13 and Dylan Cease, who struggled this year. Why not? All the underlying numbers agree that Christopher Sanchez should be like a sub-3 ERA guy with over a strikeout per inning. I don't know. Maybe he's just a top 12 starting pitcher.
So the 2 things I would say that are currently holding him back from being a top 12 starting pitcher, because he's not one this season. despite having an excellent season. He right now he's 20th. That was before this start. I would assume he'd move up a few spots. But one, it's a high-ish whip, 113. That's good. But you look at the guys ahead of him, and like Yamamoto was 1.01 before this start, and Brian Woo's 0.96, and Robbie Ray is 1.09, and Rodon is 1.03. And then strikeouts. He's a good strikeout pitcher, approaching 10 per 9. But when you compare him to, I mean, even, obviously we don't have to get into Skeens and Crochet and Tarek Skubal and those guys, but like he's behind Max Fried because the volume's not quite as good. And he's behind Robbie Ray and Joe Ryan, who have similar ERAs. So I think Christopher Sanchez is awesome. And I don't want it to be, you don't think he's a top 12 pitcher, so you think he's bad, because that's not what it is. It's
Why
just,
do you hate him, Chris?
like, he's behind Freddie Peralta, even, for the season. So I don't think you should necessarily just take what a pitcher has done and say that's who they are. But when you are dealing with that level of pitcher, you got to split hairs. And I think you can split enough hairs to push Christopher Sanchez out of the top 12.
I hear you on everything that you pointed out, and the whip in particular. But while you were breaking all of that down, all that was going through my head was Framber Valdez.
Sure.
The difference is Framber Valdez has done this for a lot longer than Christopher Sanchez. He's just more reliable. But, for a long time, we kind of have made the comp like, yeah, Christopher Sanchez, poor man's Framber Valdez. Like, it makes sense, right? They get a lot of ground balls. But
he might just be Framber Valdez.
Yeah, like Sanchez has taken that step this year to get more strikeouts. So I kind of feel like if we have Valdez as a top 12 starter, that Sanchez is just kind of in that mix.
That's reasonable. I think he's in the discussion where, we always have the, like, it's a big sports. Does anyone say in the discussion outside of this context of, like, sports, like, this guy's in the MVP discussion? I think Christopher Sanchez is in the top 12 discussion. But there are probably, 20, 25 pitchers who are in the top 12 discussion. And I don't think it's enough to make him a top 12 pitcher. But who cares, right? Like, that doesn't really... We'll have that discussion next February. And we'll have to actually make that decision. Who would you rather have, Framber Valdez or Christopher Sanchez? Who would you rather have, Christopher Sanchez or Joe Ryan? But right now, you've got Christopher Sanchez on your team, and that's awesome for you, and it sucks for everyone else. I think that's the best way to think about it.
Let's take a look at Jose Barrios, who turned in a quality start at the White Sox. 6 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts, only had 5 whiffs on 76 pitches. Something to watch here, the velocity is down quite a bit for Barrios. The sinker was down 2.1 miles per hour. The fastball down 1.5. A couple other pitches were down around 1.5 miles per hour as well. He does have a quality start in 8 of his last 10 outings. The 2 that weren't, 6 earned runs in each. So if this were any other pitcher, Chris, I would play the sound drop. Can't keep getting away with this, but this is Jose Barrios, and this is what he does. The one thing, again, it's just how worried are you about the velocity? Because, 1.5 to 2 miles per hour on everything, that kind of stands out to me.
I agree it stands out. I agree in theory it's worrisome. I don't think there's anything actionable about it. Like, if there is someone in your league who is pounding the table, I need Jose Barrios on my team right now, and I will trade, okay, sure. If you can get something good for him, do it. But I would have said that if his velocity was up 3 miles per hour. Well, probably not. If his velocity was up 3 miles per hour, I'd probably be pretty interested.
Outside of his fans, you're probably not going to get that for Jose Barrios.
I just, we know what Jose Barrios is, and it's a, 350 to 360 ERA almost every year. He's good. Mm-hmm. It's just, he's not anything much more than good.
Tanner Bybee, is he good? I don't know, man. It's just another clunker this time at the Astros. He was cruising up until the 5th inning, and then it just all fell apart. He allowed 2 homers in that inning. The final line, 4 2/3, 4 runs allowed, 3 strikeouts to 1 walk. He had 10 whiffs on 86 pitches. And, he's now allowed 4+ earned runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. It's a 4.35 ERA. It's a 1.23 WHIP. Chris, is Tanner Bybee still a must-start pitcher?
No, he's not. He's been searching for it all season, and it had seemed like maybe he had figured something out in a couple starts ago. He was like starting to throw the sweeper as his primary pitch in June. He was getting a lot more whiffs. That's been a really good pitch. And that's been the biggest problem for Tanner Bybee, is the strikeouts just have not been there this season. But he was starting to tap into that more in June. And then the last couple of starts have just been really mediocre for him. So I'm not saying you should drop Tanner Bybee, but I don't think he's someone that is just a rotation mainstay for you. I think you pick and choose your spots with him, and maybe he figures it out. We've certainly seen that from him in the past, but there is a part of me that wonders whether he's worth the trouble at this point, because the strikeout upside has just not consistently been there this season. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not viewing Tanner Bybee as a must-start pitcher. Is he in my top? Okay, he is in my top 40 in my last update, but I think that's going to go down. Yeah.
I think he probably should be closer to 50 at this point, which would put him on the fringe of he's not someone that's just I'll set it and forget it in your lineup every single week type pitcher. You brought up the strikeouts being down this year for Tanner Bybee, and he's throwing his sinker more this season. So that kind of feels like it would correlate with strikeouts going down. And he used that sinker 33% in this start. So it has been a good pitch for him in terms of just getting outs and limiting hard contact. But obviously you're not getting a lot of whiffs on a sinker. So that kind of seems like maybe it has contributed to the issues here with Tanner Bybee. Last name up is Shane Baz, who turned in a quality start at the Tigers. 6 innings, 3 runs allowed, 7 strikeouts, had 16 whiffs on 94 pitches. Just remains confounding. That's the word for me here with Shane Baz. It's just he has introduced this cutter recently, and he's throwing it a lot. He used it 30% in this, but it wasn't good. Now, is it enough for him to just throw that pitch and it helps everything else play up? I guess that's a possibility, because the fastball and the curveball looked awesome in this start. So maybe that's just it. He needed, another look, something to just kind of throw hitters off balance a little bit here. But since introducing that cutter on June 15th, it's 5 starts for Baz with a 3 ERA on the nose, a 109 whip, and over a strikeout per inning. So all in all, I think the cutter has been good here for Shane Baz. What do you think the rest of the season, Chris? Where would you have Shane Baz in your SP ranks rest of the season?
That's a rude question to ask.
Would you rather have him or Tanner Bybee?
I think it's got to be Baz. At least we've seen some upside from Shane Baz this season. It's been fleeting and has been off and on, but the cutter does seem to have changed a lot for him. Now, one thing that's worth noting is the first, let me make sure I got the number right. So we're 5 starts into the Tanner Bybee or the Shane Baz cutter experience. And the first 3 starts, the whiff rate was awesome. It was 36% in the month of June. The last 2 starts, he has gotten 1 whiff with the cutter combined over these past 2 starts. And that is on 44 pitches. So, that does suggest that there was an element of surprise when he introduced the pitch, and that's gone away. But the 4-seamer still worked really well. It still can be a really good pitch. And, yeah, maybe it's just helping the whole arsenal play up. The term you hear a lot in pitch development discussions around cutters is it's a bridge pitch. Guys have a fastball and a slider, or a fastball and a curveball in Baz's case, but it's a hard curve. And they need something to bridge the two of them together. And even if the cutter itself is not great, maybe it helps ties the room together. And that might be what we're seeing with Shane Baz here.
All right, let's wrap up with a few other things here. And I got an email asking if Bryce Harper is washed. So, look, Bryce Harper missed almost all of June with a right wrist injury. He's 32 years old. So it's not impossible that he's slowing down. at this point. But obviously, dealing with a wrist injury, it's probably going to take some time to get back on track, get your timing back, all that thing, and, maybe even still playing through something. But overall, it's a 253 batting average, 9 homers, 8 steals, 792 OPS for Harper, which, is not what you expected, obviously. You're probably expecting closer to like a 900 OPS bat from Bryce Harper. Still hitting the ball hard. The barrel rate's been down 2 seasons in a row. Some scary stuff in the underlying plate discipline metrics here, Chris. What do you think? Is Bryce Harper washed?
So he was like a borderline first-round pick coming into the season, and now he'd be more like a third-rounder for me. So if that's how you're defining it, like he's no longer an elite player, then I think that's reasonable. He's 32 years old, even Hall of Famers, and yes, Bryce Harper is going to be a Hall of Famer. Do not at me. That is not controversial. Even those guys age. They just tend to age better than everyone else, and that's what you're seeing. Like, he's not the player he once was. The quality of contact's a little worse. The plate discipline's a little worse, especially when you look under the hood. But a little worse for Bryce Harper, still a really good player. 376 xWOBA is still really good. 423 xWOBA on contact, still really good. Not as good as it once was, but I do not think we are seeing the end of Bryce Harper as a productive baseball player. It's just maybe it's more like an 840, 850 OPS than the 900 OPS. Mm-hmm. That might be the case.
We've talked about this all season long, and again, maybe there needs to be some kind of recalibration amongst StatCast expected stats, but last year, Bryce Harper overperformed his expected stats. This year, the expected stats are a little bit better than where they were last year, but he's vastly underperforming them. So do with that information what you will. I am still willing to say that I think as Bryce Harper gets further removed from this wrist injury, he'll have a better second half. I could see him, like you said, if he's probably I would say over 850. If you gave me over under 850 OPS rest of the season, I would take the over on that. So I guess based on what he's done so far, I still think he's a buy right now.
I think that's fine, yeah.
If you can obviously, get him for a discount based on where he was drafted earlier this season. Did you realize hitters
Sorry, that's...
Yeah, I got to get the sound.
Gotta get the drop.
Got to get the sound drop for you.
The people want to hear a 25-year-old Flaming Lips song on their fantasy baseball podcast.
Well, you know what? With all the I don't know, questionable things that I throw out there, I guess that would fit right in. So why not? Roman Anthony might be happening. 3 for 5 with his second home run. This one off of a lefty. And over his last 9 games, he's hitting .390 with 1 homer, 4 doubles. Strikeout rate down to 23% during that time. Hitting the ball extremely hard. Still way too many ground balls. But we're starting to see it here from Roman Anthony. Bobby Witt Jr., last 21 games, he's hitting .360 with 5 homers, 21 runs, 15 RBI, 3 steals, and OPS around 1,000. If there were ever any questions about Bobby Witt Jr., he's fine. Salvador Perez slowly picking the numbers back up, 2 for 4 with his 11th home run. And over his last 40 games, hitting .260 with 9 homers, 31 RBI, and OPS over 800, which is pretty much the player you were expecting from Salvador Perez. Isaac Paredes picking things back up himself, hit his 19th home run over his last 10. He's hitting .318 with 3 home runs. And Corey Seager, a name I just will not shut up about. Last 15 games, .286, 6 homers, 14 runs, 13 RBI, a 1084 OPS. 5 names here, Chris. Hitters heating up. Anything that stands out? Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the key thing for me with Salvador Perez is, as frustrating as the experience of having him on your roster has been, he's still on a 90 RBI pace. How many catchers have more RBI than him? Cal Raleigh, okay, that's one. I'm not sure there's another catcher with more RBI.
I think Austin Wells, oddly enough, has a lot of RBI this season. But I think Salvador Perez probably has more than him.
Hunter Goodman and Salvador Perez were tied for second with 50.
There you go.
At the start of today. So, yeah, that's patience. It was possible that Salvador Perez had just lost it, but you need even 2 months is just not enough time to drastically change your opinion on really well-established players, most of whom are on this list, Roman Anthony being the major exception. But that's also one where you need to give a guy like Roman Anthony some time. We've talked about basically every hitting prospect the last 2 or 3 years. It seems like the first month is a wash, and maybe the second month too. Eventually they start to figure out. Now it's hard to know that. It's hard to say that in the moment because you're taking losses and that's tough. It's also hard to know that, hey, this guy who's been terrible for 2 months, who has never been good at the major league level before, is definitely going to be good. You can't say that. But you got to have faith in the talent. You got to have faith in the ability to identify really good players. So it just speaks to the kind of patience you have to have with young guys.
Couple leftovers here on the hitting side. Vinny P.
Baby.
Vinny Pasquantino, the power stroke is coming alive here. He has 3 home runs in his last 4 games. All of those are against left-handed pitching. Agustin Ramirez, such a sweet swing. His home runs are great to watch no matter who hits them. They look a little bit better off of Agustin Ramirez's bat, man. 2 for 4 with his 14th home run. He's done that in 65 games. So, look, if we're thinking about the future a little bit, if Agustin Ramirez is, I don't know, 130, 140 game player next season, I think he has 30 home run upside. He's got to avoid, a sophomore slump and all those types of things, but the power potential is apparent here with Agustin Ramirez. And shout out to Manny Machado, 3 for 5 with his 15th home run and picked up his 2,000th career hit.
Yeah, that's another guy who's going into the Hall of Fame. That also might make some people mad, but that's happening.
I think I saw a graphic during the game. Players with 350 home runs and 2,000 hits before they turned 33, and it was all just bona fide Hall of Fame players.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he technically did turn 33 2 days ago, but that's beside the point. This is age 32 season. That's why just being a major leaguer at 19, like Manny Machado was, let alone being a decent major league hitter at 19, it's basically like a 70% chance that you're going to make the Hall of Fame. Just if all you know about is that, you've got a good bet that guy's going to make the Hall of Fame. That's, yeah.
Yeah, it has played out that way thus far. Some pitching leftovers. Jacob deGrom was meh at the Angels. 5 innings, 3 runs with 5 strikeouts here. It was the first time allowing more than 2 earned runs since April 11th for Jacob deGrom. So just speaks volumes to how good he's been. And Yusei Kikuchi, not great on the other side. 5 innings, 4 runs allowed with 4 strikeouts. Did have 16 whiffs on 97 pitches. 7 of those on the slider, 5 on the fastball. It's interesting, Chris, that we had this stretch in June where Kikuchi threw his curveball more and everything kind of lined up. All right, he was getting good results. The pitch mix is different. All right, we could buy into that. And over his last couple starts here in July, he is not throwing the curveball as much anymore. So I don't really know why that's happening, but his fastball and slider have got hit very hard this season. So
I don't know why he's making this decision. The Yusei Kikuchi story. That's how I feel about that. It just he's an inveterate tinkerer, and he usually tinkers his way into figuring it out. But sometimes, like we're seeing, he tinkers his way back out of being good, and there's a reason he's been a very, very frustrating fantasy option for years. So just as I was talking after that stretch about how I needed to move him up and I had buried him too far, and I think I did end up moving him into like the top 45. Of course, then he lets us down. That's the Yusei Kikuchi experience right there.
It's crazy that he has a 3.02 ERA and a 1.38 WHIP. Right?
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other. So, look, it's still lots of strikeouts, but just a very interesting player is what I will call Yusei Kikuchi. Couple bullpen updates here for the Marlins. Anthony Bender entered with 2 outs in the 9th inning, 2 runners on, a 4-run lead. He struck out Austin Hayes to pick up his 2nd save of the season. And there you go, Chris. Is Ronnie Enriquez actually the closer for the Marlins? This wasn't a traditional save opportunity, but...
Yeah, and he might have... he'd worked 3 of the... No, I don't think this was a workload thing.
He last pitched on
the
Saturday,
5th, yeah.
so he...
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing I did notice about Ronnie Enriquez, I was doing that research earlier today that I mentioned when I was talking about Freddie Peralta. Ronnie Enriquez has 4 pitches with an above average whiff rate. I did not realize that about him, but that's I think he's the best pitcher in the Marlins bullpen. I don't think this changes that he is likely the Marlins closer, although maybe not the actual, for sure, Marlins closer.
Mm-hmm. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase pitched a clean 9th inning for his 19th save. And for the Giants, Camilo Doval got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He walked 1, but picked up his 14th save of the season. To stream or not to stream on Tuesday, we have Brian Bayo up against the Rockies, Nick Martinez against the Marlins, Andre Palante against the Nationals, and Jeffrey Springs home against the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I think Bayo and Martinez are the 2 best, and Palante's fine for a 3rd.
Yep, agreed. And then on Wednesday, we have Eric Lauer at the White Sox. Adrian Hauser is on the other side against the Blue Jays. Bailey Falter at the Royals. Cade Horton at the Twins. Slade Ciccone at the Astros. Brandon Walter versus the Guardians. And Kumar Rocker at the Angels.
I think there's some interesting options here. I think Lauer and Hauser on both sides of that matchup have both been doing some really good stuff. And Brandon Walter... There aren't a lot of pitchers I wouldn't stream against the Guardians right now, and Brandon Walter fits in with the guys I would. And I think Kumar Rocker is doing enough interesting since introducing that cutter of his that I think he's an okay streamer against the Angels too.
Yeah, I like Lauer. Hauser I'm a little bit weary of just because the Blue Jays don't strike out very much. They're hitting the ball well right now, but he has performed well. So I would go Lauer. I agree with Walter and Rocker. Kind of intrigued by Cade Horton, who's coming off his best start of the season at the Twins. They're not hitting the ball well
decent
right
matchup,
now. Yeah, he's behind the other names, but I think he's another name that you can look at here. Let's wrap up with some Team Name Tuesday. Chris, are you ready?
Yes. Just keep talking. I have to open the door to let the cats in because she's going to break down the door if I don't.
All right. I could just filibuster in the meantime while you do that, and because I don't want you to miss out on any of these names. Obviously, you want to get your reaction. And Chris is back, so here we go. This one is from Casey. Acuna Machado means no worries.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I just got to piece it together there. But yes, that is good. From Brendan, Joe Boyle rules.
Yeah, that's one of the Adam Sandler movies, right?
That is
Happy Madison.
Billy
Madison. Yeah.
Yeah. I look like a bad Adam Sandler fan right now, but yeah, I think
that should be you. That's your wheelhouse.
Yes. Kurt Sowood.
Yeah.
Come on, baby, make it Kurt Sowood. Augustine, Everything After.
Yep. That's
what is that from?
That's a Counting Crows album, I believe.
Oh, all right. Force of Habit. I guess it's
Force of Habit, yeah.
And Beyozo Dubbed Over.
that's a good one. That's
what is that from? I don't know.
That's an I Think You Should Leave skit.
There you go.
So please don't watch it if you're not already a fan, because I can't ever recommend I Think You Should Leave. As much as I love it, it's just you either get it or you don't, and if you don't, you're gonna think it's the dumbest thing in the world.
I did try to watch it because I remember you and the Welsh with this. Whenever we were off air, you guys would just rave about it, and I watched it, and I couldn't get into it.
Do not watch Friendship.
Comedy. I usually watch. I like stupid comedy, but I don't know. I couldn't do it, man.
The movie he did with Paul Rudd, I enjoyed it. It is one of the most uncomfortable experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. I watched the entire movie with my hands covering my eyes.
Oh gosh, these are from Lewis, the Steer Master.
Yep.
Steerway to Heaven.
Yep.
Do not understeer the Spencer.
Yep.
And band team names from Mateo. Bohm Ivor.
Yep.
Dinosaur Tatis Jr.
That's good.
the Flaming Lipscombs,
There you go.
Weemser,
Yep.
and Minterpole.
Yep.
And we got a bunch from a listener named Rob. 3 Sheets to the Win.
Yep.
Inglorious Bassets.
Yep.
Dobbins the House Elf.
Yep.
Dr. Dre the Kranich.
Sure.
Highway to Helsley.
Yeah.
Yelich Submarine.
Yep.
Bubich Prize.
I don't get that one.
I don't know either.
All right.
Blue Baez.
Sure.
Don't Rain on My Paredes.
Yep.
Ober and Out. Or Ober and Trout.
Yeah.
Frosty the Stroman.
Yeah, I think that's an old one, but a good one.
Frito-Lay.
Yep.
The Chisholm Trail.
Like am I missing something? Is it the Oregon Trail?
No, I looked it up. I think this was a thing.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah. A stock trail and wagon route used in post-Civil War era.
Okay, sure.
According to Wikipedia. So there you go.
Great team name.
Vivas Las Vegas.
Sure.
Friar Tucker.
Yep.
Tucker and Roll.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. We're going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.